All right, so it is 10 a.m. in New York, time for the webinar, and it feels really good to be back in this room. During the normal semester, we're here pretty much every day, but it's been a Christmas break, and it's been about 2 months since I was here, so it's very nice to be back here. And today we have a very, very special guest. We have a company called Unplag, and they're special for several reasons. First and foremost, obviously, they are from Ukraine, and those of you who know me know my Ukrainian connection. But also that there are a few other reasons they're very special. They are basically an academic company. And since X-Culture is ultimately an education company, we often deal with the issues of plagiarism, and we obviously check for plagiarism, and that's exactly what Unplag does. So they do help instructors, students to detect plagiarism, as well as all kinds of other problems in writing. And so this product is directly related to what we do. Next one, I really like this company because they're basically where Google was in 1996, at the time when Yahoo dominated the search market, and then those two guys come along and they're the underdog and nobody pays attention to them. But then in a few years, they become basically the search engine. Same thing with Unplag. I don't know if it's going to happen to them or not, but today we have Turnitin, the company that X-Culture uses. They dominate the market. They probably have, I don't know, 90–95% of the market. There are a few other big companies that also are big players, and then we have Unplag. They have a different product. They have a slightly different algorithm. They are experimenting with the artificial intelligence. And I don't know, maybe they will fail, who knows? But there is a very good chance they may become a major player in a year, 2 years, 3 years. So we are privileged to see this company today while they're still small and nobody knows about them. And would it be nice when, I don't know, in 3 years, they basically become the king of the plagiarism market, and you can tell that you knew them even before everybody else knew them. So anyway, we have the CEO of the company here today with us, Anastasia Paroja. And as always, we will start with a little introduction of the company, the products, the history, and then we have already received a lot of questions via email. As always, feel free to join us right here in the webinar room. Just click on that presenter link and you will be right here with us. So you will be able to join the discussion and talk to us directly. Or if you have questions, just simply email them to us and we will ask them. I will try to monitor the questions and group them by topics. And so probably we will just go in the sequence in which the questions appear in the Unplag challenge. But let's see how it goes. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it back to the presenter, Ms. Anastasia Paroja, and let's talk a little bit about the company. All right, all yours.
Okay, so great. Thank you for the introduction, first of all. And speaking a little bit about Unplag, so there's some basic information covered in the, I think, in the challenge document, but overall, let me repeat this. So Unplag as a company, I think it's a pretty young company that was founded in 2014. So this is basically about like 3 years ago, taking into account it's 17 years right now. But we initially had two directions. The first one, we were working with individual customers, like students like you, and the second direction was working with the business-to-business customers. And so on the US market, we haven't been presented for a long period of time. So I think it's probably since April last year that we have been working in the US, and maybe about a year plus a few months that we have been working in the other countries in the world. So we do have a really tough competition because some of our competitors, they were launched tens of years ago, and because those were the first products introduced into the market, they did have a really good entrance into the market because this was the first product of that line. And secondly, they have been there for a very long period of time without any competition, which means that it got kind of a habit for the instructor to use Turnitin, say in US, or to use Urkund in Northern Europe without even thinking what sort of software they're using. So basically, when they think about plagiarism detection, they just think of Turnitin or Urkund, and they don't really think that there is another type of the software. So this is one of the challenges that that we face. The other one, like it was mentioned, we're physically located in Ukraine. We have the sales office in Ukraine right now, and we have the development office in Ukraine right now as well. And though we do have a company that presents us in Europe, and we do have a company in the US to actually run business in the US, we still experience a lot of problems. Well, the first of the problems is that because we are targeting mostly the higher education and universities and colleges, it's not possible to get a deal within participating and within submitting a request for a proposal. So basically, and request for a proposal is a very long administrative document, maybe about 30 pages, that contains very complicated requirements. So basically, it's not really possible for a company in Ukraine without a huge sales force and without a huge team in the US or Europe to actually participate in the RFP, because there are a lot of requirements in terms of insurance. There are a lot of requirements in terms of the company structure, in terms of the salaries, and in terms of actually proving that you can financially support the whole team during the period of time for which you would like to provide the service. There are also other operational costs connected with the service. So for example, when you're in the US universities do not allow the data to leave the US. So basically we have to buy the servers in the US. Same goes for Canada, and same goes to most of the European countries. So this is the other problem. And also we do visit a lot of conferences, and we do visit a lot of expos worldwide. So we have been last year, we have been in Dubai, we have been in London, we have been in Berlin, we have been in the US a few times. And the problem that we face is that the conferences and the expos, they are not being attended by people who actually make the decision. So for example, the head of the e-learning department, a very rare visitor to the expo. And who's visiting? That's the teachers. And the teachers who are actually the users of the system, they are not the decision makers. So it's very complicated for us to reach the audience. And on the other side, we are working in the market where it's not possible to target users via the regular online marketing means. So mostly here, this is the personal connection or the referral or recommendation from, let's say, one e-learning specialist to the other e-learning specialist. So it's very complicated to reach that audience. So basically, in some way, you have to be directly present within the university or have some connections within the university. And for example, if you would recall a standard channel that is recommended for B2B, so for example, LinkedIn, not a lot of teachers, not a lot of instructors, not a lot of representatives of the education are actually present on LinkedIn, because there's a huge separation between the education and business. So people from education, they are not really available on LinkedIn. And if some of them are available, it's very complicated to get in touch with them because they are a rare guest at the LinkedIn. And also, as a rule, they do not have Twitter accounts, but there is some educational Twitter account, but it's not possible to reach them via this account. So basically, we are struggling to find the way how to expand our B2B market share, and probably this is the main challenge for us. And there was something I wanted to add. Though we are a small company, I mean, considered compared to Turnitin or other companies, we've managed to do a lot of projects last year, and though initially introduced into the market only about a year ago as a system for higher education, we already have about 100 plus corporate customers in the world, and maybe about 45 high schools, colleges, and universities in the US as well. And recently, we've got an award for an RFP for the University of the Tennessee in Knoxville, and also at Martin. And probably this was our first, I would say, a pretty huge victory on the US market that right now might give us an option to have some universities in the portfolio and to get more clients. And also one of the strategies, just what I'm thinking about, and this may give you some idea maybe in what direction to move. So one of the things I have in mind is actually finding the resellers, finding the partners in different regions of the world, including the US, including the Britain, including the Germany, who actually already have access to the universities in some way. So this can be the companies who actually introduce learning management systems, or this can be the companies that already have some product that is used by the university and which has a really great reputation. So there might be a lot of ways, but also there is, except apart from competitors, there is also a very specific factor that I think is related to, I mean, people are being quite lazy, and it's very, very complicated to make a person that has been using their system for the last 10 years to switch to something new. So I think this is also one of the biggest challenges that we face. And this is probably in short about Unplug and our history and the problems that we faced when trying to work on the B2B market.
All right, thank you so much for the introduction. I actually see we have someone here. Nancy, did you want to ask a question, or you just want to head around and wait for a better moment? Your microphone is muted, I guess. Yeah, well, that's fine. Nancy, if you decided to ask a question, feel free to interrupt us anytime. A few questions about the company that I received via the email, and then we'll move on to the more specific questions. One, how many employees do you have at this time?
About 50.
Is it a private company or a public company?
It's a private company.
Is it a single owner, or several people own it, or several partners?
It's several partners owning the company.
Okay, and your position, you're basically in charge of the company, you're the CEO, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, yeah, so just wanted to clear those. Most of them arrived a few days ago. There is one that just came here, and I'm actually interested in that one too, not related to your company, but just curious. You mentioned that many countries require that the data about the users are stored on the servers located in that country. And yeah. I know that's the case in the United States, in the most of the countries of the European Union. What is the logic for that? I mean, how is it safer? I mean, is it more difficult to hack the server in a particular country? I mean, why would that be the restriction?
It's just that the universities, they are very, very concerned about their data, so they prefer for it to stay inside the country. That's it. So there are no any other special restrictions. That's just the wish that they have. And in terms of operation, it really affects the operational costs of the company. So, for example, getting a server that will support the load that we have right now in Europe, it's about $8,000. And also we have to get another ones in the US and then also in Canada. And so the operational cost just to support the software, it gets really, really tremendous.
Right, yeah. Another question, more about the industry. So as I understand, there are several types of customers in your industry. So the products could be bought directly by the universities or schools, and that's the option you're most interested in. Yeah. But it is also possible for the individual users to buy a personal license or subscription, and then use your or similar products individually. Is that correct? And then can you clarify whether you are specifically interested in business users, or you're also open to the idea of recruiting or selling your product to individual customers?
Yeah, this is absolutely correct. So I'll just, probably most of you are familiar with Turnitin, and Turnitin, they target higher education and mostly institutions and universities and colleges. And also they do have the second product named Unicheck that basically provides exactly the same service to the individual user. So basically any student can go ahead, upload some document, run checks, and make sure there is no plagiarism inside before final submission within the university. At Unplug, we do have an option like this, but we decided to, for the individual customers, we decided to move in a little bit different direction, where we would like to go a little bit away from the concept of just plagiarism checker for the individuals, more to the tool that will help individuals to better write academic papers. Right. So this is why we have the a tool for defining citations. We have the information that can define the algorithm that can define the references, and also in the next iteration of the product, we might introduce a tool that will have some sort of a, let's say, plugin for your browser, where you can just go ahead when visiting some sources. You can select an area, click on the button like add it to the draft, and the information will appear inside your interfaces for writing the document, and then you can put plagiarism check over it. And in terms of the individual customers, there's not a real problem to introduce individual customers into the system, because most of the individual customers, those are students, and it's not so complicated to get students online to visit your website, because they are available on the social networks, they are available in the communities, they make a lot of search in the search engine. So basically they are present online, and it's possible to get students to the website by means of the online marketing activities. And for the B2B, it's just not possible. So we're mostly interested in non-standard ideas, how we can broaden our B2B client base.
Yeah, makes sense. Yes, much bigger market. Many questions. Oh, there is one more that I just forgot to ask. Does your program, as well as the ones offered by Turnitin and other competitors, do they only work on computers in web browsers, or can they also be installed on mobile devices as phones or tablets? That's an app, or is it an in-browser program?
That's actually a great question. All the software is running on the desktop, because it's not likely that instructors or students are writing any documents on the mobile phone and then submitting them for plagiarism.
Right.
But on the other hand, and what we plan doing for the B2B, we still know that in a lot of universities, there is still no full online education programs, and some of the students, they still submit the documents to the professors in the printed way. So we're thinking about developing an application for the mobile that will take a photo of the document, will convert it to PDF or text format that we can actually check, and then run check in the system.
Mm-hmm. All right, so again, I see there are several people here in the webinar room. So I see Anna Karen and I see Nancy. If you have any questions, feel free to join the discussion. And I think I'm going to now proceed with the questions that I received earlier and grouped by them in the order in which they appear in the challenge. And so there are several students who ask about the survey. So the first question of the Xculture challenge is to basically conduct a survey of the key stakeholders. And in the context of Unplag, we have obviously students, but then we also have teachers, and probably and most importantly, we have the academic administrators. Ultimately, it's not the teachers who make the decision to buy or not to buy the product, but the administrators. And it could be some sort of like a procurement department, or it could be maybe the dean's office, or it could be, I don't know, the department chair, but probably people from the administration and not the professors who actually buy the product. And so one of the suggestions we had was to conduct an analysis of those stakeholder groups to better understand their preferences or perceptions, or maybe restrictions that they face, constraints that they face. And you can just do some online search to find that information. But one of the suggestions, and in fact, I strongly recommend that you try to do that, is to actually conduct your own research. Literally find 5 students, 5 friends, and ask them if they know anything about programs that check for plagiarism. And if so, do they ever use them? And if so, why they use one or not another? And then the same thing with the instructors, and then probably, again, most importantly, with the administrators. Literally go and talk to 1 or 2 professors. Go and talk to maybe the dean of your business school, or maybe the principal of the school that your children go to. Since there are 5, 6, sometimes even 7 students per team, if each of you surveys 1, 2, 3 people, you will actually have a sizable sample of respondents, and you will have some good data to better understand how the system works, so that when the time comes for you to recommend best pricing policy or best entry mode, you know whom you're dealing with. And so we have a lot of questions here for the company as to what is the best way to conduct that research, 1. Second, are there particular groups that you're most interested in? And third, and I guess we have those questions, but still, what questions would you be interested in or recommend them asking so that they get the most useful information to provide the foundation for the subsequent, for answering the subsequent questions of the challenge.
That was the question for me, right?
Yeah, well, it's a long question, but how would you recommend, essentially, how would you recommend going about this survey? Whom should they ask? What should they ask? And what kind of information do you think they should be looking for?
I can tell that based on the deals that we have signed already. So the people that we have been in touch, that have been the heads of the IT departments, that have been the people related to instructional design for the learning management system, and people in the something related to e-learning innovation or something related to the e-learning. So in different institutions, this is really different. And probably what you can ask them is whether there are any, whether there is actually any problems probably with the recent software. If there's a problem, what sort of problem they experience. The other point here is whether they feel that there are some budget constraints and whether they would be interested to purchase a software same efficient, but let's say that might cost less. And the very, very important question is how they actually interact with the users of the system. So basically how they interact with instructors who actually use the system, and whether they are getting the feedback, any sort of the feedback from the instructors, not only in relation to plagiarism detection software, but mostly in relation to any type of the software that might be introduced to the university. So when they have to start something new, when they have to share information about the new system. So basically whether they are getting the feedback and whether this feedback makes some impact on the decision to get this software or not to get this software. I think that's the main points.
I would also add, especially for those of you who are either in the graduate programs or are planning to apply to graduate programs. As you know, we have the X-Culture Symposium organized every year. In fact, now it's going to be twice a year. So the next one will be in Miami in July, and then the other one this year will be in Washington, D.C. in November. The second one, the one in Washington, D.C., is organized together with the Academy of International Business. And one thing you as a student can do is to actually write a paper and present your scholarly paper at that symposium, at that conference. And so if you did a good study, if you surveyed, I don't know, a few dozen people about the use of plagiarism detection software, that could actually provide a nice foundation for a scholarly paper that you can then present at the conference. If you do that, it will be a very strong line on your resume, especially if you will be applying to graduate programs like PhD, especially the research-oriented programs. If you have a paper that you presented at a major conference and maybe even published at some time, that would be a huge differentiating factor for you. And so it would be very difficult for one person to collect enough data to write a paper. But if you work as a team, and especially if you team up with people from other teams and we pull all those data together, we could actually have a nice data set for a nice study on, how people make decisions about plagiarism. So this could be something that you can do on top of your regular X-Culture challenge and actually get a nice, addition to your performance record, to your resume, that will help you later either get into a graduate program or maybe even get a job. So look at this task not only as this is something I need to do for this particular course, but as something that you can use for your future career. Anyway, next question, and we have lots of questions here. So the SWOT analysis, strengths, opportunities, threats, and weaknesses. So compared to competition. And I guess it would be a little bit of cheating here because we expect you, the students, to compare this company to other companies and analyze its strengths and weaknesses, as well as threats and opportunities it may face. But obviously you ask, and my job is here to relay those questions to Anastasia. So if you had to compare Unplugged to your competitors, what would you say are your strengths and weaknesses?
The strengths, maybe I'll start with the strong points. So we do have much better pricing compared to the other services. We are same way efficient as Turnitin, and we are much more efficient than a few other services who sell at a really low rates. We have a great customer support. We assign account managers, so we try to stay like a great example of the service, not only in terms of the plagiarism, but overall in a direction where the software is provided as a service. We are probably the only company that takes feedback from the users. And for example, when they request some additional functionality or they request some interface changes, we make it happen. So our main goal is to make the user experience of people working with the system so great that they won't even notice that there is some tool that they're actually using. So most of the universities and colleges right now, they have some learning management system. And there is also a standard flow which they use to create assignments, to work with the students. And one of the main tasks for us and advantages is that Unplug integrated in a natural flow of creating the assignment in the learning management system, so no one actually notices it. And this is also one of the great things. We are technically much more advanced than most of our competitors, and we never lose any single document submitted into the system. We have very, very specific systems that allow us to work with a huge load. So for example, if we get a huge package of documents to be checked right now, like maybe 50, 100,000 in the same minute, we just allocate additional servers that take the load and we process all the documents. So we do not lose the time here. And the other great point is that at Unplug, we also have a team of scientists working with us right now, and we are trying to shift the usual tools that check for plagiarism into a little bit different direction that will define the authorship, but not just make text comparison. So we're also working on the new product that might disrupt the niche. And the weak points, we don't have a lot of clients in our portfolio right now, and because we don't have a lot of clients, this is the reason why we don't have a lot of clients. So it just happens like this all the time because we cannot provide some really, really great references. But I think that this is exactly the same for every new business entering the niche. And then we do have a terrific maybe weakness compared to Turnitin, but to Turnitin only. It's just that because Turnitin, they have this huge academic database of student papers that were submitted into the system for the last 20 years, and they are the only company who actually own this database. So for example, this instructor from one university can make a comparison of the paper submitted by her student versus the paper submitted 10 years ago in the other university. And so this is one of the points. And the other one is because Turnitin, they have received a really huge investments, and because they were charging their clients a really huge amount of money, it's possible for them to buy access to a huge number of paid journals.
Mm-hmm.
And make comparison against them. The paid journals comparison, this is not important for the students because usually students also don't have access to some academic databases, but this is important to professors who would like to check their own research and to make sure it's original and everything is cited correctly. So basically, though the system is used to check the student papers only, but still there are professors on top of this who require access to a very expensive number of paid journals, which neither Unplug nor the other services except for Turnitin can allow. But that's probably it.
Interesting. Obviously, when we submit papers to journals, they are always checked for plagiarism.
Yeah.
I know they always use Turnitin, but I never thought why that would be the case, and yeah, it actually kind of explains it. Anyway, guys, I see there is Joy just left, and then we have Cliff and we have Nancy. So again, if you want to ask questions, feel free to join us anytime. And we will move on to the next question. Decision makers and promotion channels. We briefly talked about that. So you said that the decision makers usually are not the students and not even the professors, but the administrators. And so it's not always easy to reach them. But what do you do now to try to reach them, or what would be the what is your strategy essentially to in terms of reaching the people who make the purchasing decisions?
So we do have a website, and we do traditional search engine optimization for requests like plagiarism checker, free plagiarism checker, plagiarism detection software. And so when, for example, someone from administration would enter this into the search line, they will find our website, but this is only one of the channels. Secondly, we've managed to become the partners for Canvas, one of the learning management systems that is now getting into the market. And so according to our agreement, if any of the clients are interested in plagiarism detection software, they will recommend Unplug, because we have a great integration, we have a great attitude. So this is also one of the ways. So this is the partnering or the resellers that I have mentioned. And then also we do attend conferences, we do attend expos, but unfortunately the audience overview the conference organizers would usually give to you, this is nothing close to reality. So there's a huge problem with them, especially when you have to pay for the stand or build a custom stand. So the costs here are very high. And also, what else we are doing, I guess?
Well, one question I would like to ask or clarify. So when we talk about the ways to reach a potential customers, I guess, or decision makers,
Yeah.
It is clear that the normal marketing channels would not work. It's not something that you would advertise on TV, for example, right?
Yeah.
Or you wouldn't put an ad in a newspaper.
Yeah.
So is it correct to say that the best promotion strategy will then be something inexpensive yet very targeted? Maybe, I don't know, if the students could find some sort of like a special newsletter that goes out to, let's say, for example, principals of the schools, or maybe deans of the business schools, or something like that. So they should not think about advertisement as, you would advertise, I don't know, toothpaste, for example, or cars. It should be something much, much more focused. But the beauty of that is if you find the right channel, it could actually be free or nearly free. Is that a fair kind of expectation assessment?
Yeah, this is absolutely correct. But also in terms of, for example, newsletter or email marketing, there are actually a lot of companies who offer to buy lists of instructors or buy lists of principals or buy a list of whoever you want. But when you send an email like this, it's usually treated like spam, because this is not a point of contact that they are expecting. But for example, in case some of the admins have a pleasant experience working with some product, and then they share this experience with his friend, this is definitely going to work. So this is either a direct sale or recommendation, and recommendations here work the best.
Makes perfect sense. One question that I skipped, and that is probably the most important, the markets that you're interested in. So I know in our prior conversations, you mentioned that you're specifically interested in the United States and some other countries, but could you clarify that? So what are the regions, or are there any regions that you're particularly interested in, or are you open to any country as long as there is demand? So could you talk a little bit about the geography of your interests?
We are very interested in US, and this is probably our main market right now. We're also looking at Canada, but in Canada we still don't have any single client, so this makes things really complicated. We're having a few pilots in the UK right now, so we are definitely looking at this area. We are having a few pilots in Germany, and then we definitely target the Spanish and Latin America market, because this one is also huge, and we also have some great connections there as well. So in terms of the leads that we get to our website, we also receive a lot of leads from India, and we work with a few universities in India, and India private universities is also a great market for us. And we are also working with Philippines, but Philippines are not so strong. So basically this is US, this is Canada, this is UK, and this is probably India right now. And in terms of
comment on the languages you mentioned before in our conversation, that also plagiarism is not so easy to detect in some languages, but much easier in others. So which makes you basically limited to certain regions that use, like, for example, English. Or can you comment on that some more?
The way the algorithm of the system works, we make comparison. So we basically, when we get the text, we break it into some text areas, and then we make mostly exact match comparison. And this is the basis of the system. So we can work with every language where people use words to build sentences. But however, for example, in Chinese, Japanese, or Korean, because they use very special symbols and the combination of same symbols but in different order can mean different things, it's not possible for us to work with those languages.
Very interesting. Cliff, I see you ask a question about the demo. Do you want to unmute your microphone and ask live? Go ahead. Yeah, don't be shy. Just unmute your microphone. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi.
Okay, I'm excited to be working with you guys. And Dr. Vargas, I love this. This is awesome. I wish I could do this in every class. I'm a returning student. I've been in the business community for a while and decided to go back to school. So I have some sales experience. However, my question is, I have a couple of questions. One is about the demo. Do you have like a demo? Let's say, for example, something that you could send and I could present to, let's say, an institution and to explain this is how you guys are better than the competition. And do you have like maybe some marketing materials, supplies, little small things that can be left behind that can remind them about your company? That's one question. I have another question, but you can answer that one first.
And on, yeah, we'll give you a few more minutes later on for the question. Yes, let's do this one and then move on to the next question.
Yeah, definitely. We do have the marketing materials. We do have presentations that we send to the customers, and we do have the demos, but we prefer to work in a little bit different ways. So when we receive an initial request, for example, to the website, the first thing that we are trying to do is to schedule something like a 30 minutes online demo. So we are not trying to send a lot of documentation. We're not trying to send the presentation because this gets really boring. So basically we ask, will you have some time this week or next week for a 30 minutes online demo? They usually say yes. Then we make an online meeting in Zoom or a system similar to Hangouts or something like this. They take a look at the system, and because the system is very, very simple and user-friendly, by the end of the demo, I usually ask them, how do you find this system? They say, oh, it's nice, it's easy to use. So was it easy to follow the presenter? Yes, it was easy to follow the presenter. Now, would you like to test Unplug inside your system? And the answer is usually yes. And this is when we actually set up them the trial accounts and give them access to the system and have them play around inside. So as a rule, we do not send like the documents that they have to read because people don't really like to read, at least most of the people. But we do have a lot of presentations available in the Unplug channel, and I also do have some marketing materials in terms of the system that we can share and that I'll be happy to provide. Absolutely.
If I may clarify here, so do you have like a 2-minute video or some sort of like an animation that you could see, like for example for Dropbox, that very briefly introduces your product and compares maybe to the competition, or maybe something like the videos that you could see on Kickstarter? Are there any like quick 2-3-minute things that we can share with the potential customers?
It's sort of different because it's like, Unplug is the product which main goal is to automate the plagiarism detection process. So the presentation that we usually run, we show how Unplug is integrated inside the learning management system, and this really takes about 30 minutes. So we haven't ever made, some sort of a marketing video, a short marketing video that will shout out some of the features, because we actually thought that it won't work out because Unplug product I would really say that it's not so exciting. It's not about entertainment. It's not about giving something great. And it's really, a product that helps helps instructors find the students who cheat, and for students there's nothing great about it. And taking into account that a lot of the instructors in the higher education and professors, they are probably over 50 right now, they are not really feeling excited about, short marketing videos. So they prefer to take a look at something that really makes sense, that is straightforward, that is easy to understand. So that's why we never made it.
All right. Cliff, you said you had another question?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. That was a great answer. Thank you. My other question is, you were talking about search engine optimization a little while ago, and I put in plagiarism checker, and among the titles that came up above your website were things like Grammarly, also Check, and Paper Rater, and those kind of things. And so my question is, one, are you open to maybe giving the product a name that maybe, especially for like American customers, that is more sort of hip and cool, so that it can be something that, because in America, we kind of drive towards things that are cool. Like Uber, I don't even know what it means, but everybody loves it because of it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree at this point. Actually, we have received, but Unplug, so Grammarly and Check, those are the products for the students. They don't target higher education, so they don't target B2B. And we did receive, so for the Unplug, for the individuals, yet we are thinking about introducing something cool, something more interesting. And we did receive a negative feedback how Unplug actually sounds in the US. So people say that it sounds negative. And so we have received a huge number of recommendations to change the number of the product to something new, and you have just confirmed that we should make it. So yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, in America. Sorry, in America, yeah, Unplug. We use the term unplug.
Yeah.
Which technically stems from unplugging something from the electricity source.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
It has become a term used for a lot of other things, like disconnecting yourself from the world or disconnecting yourself from your social unit, all kinds of things. So it's kind of, it does have kind of a negative connotation.
Yeah, one of the things I'm thinking about to actually is to change the name of Unplug for the B2B in 2017 to a totally new product name, because this hasn't been a success. So thank you.
And that is one of the questions that we have in the challenge. So anyone who's watching, so if you have better names for the company, feel free to suggest them. I personally like the name.
Okay.
I mean, we know what Plague is, and Unplague kind of, maybe it should have been Plagueless, I guess. I don't know. But yes, if you have better ideas, feel free to share them. The company is very receptive to that.
Okay.
Michael, I see, just joined us. Michael, again, if you want to ask any questions, feel free to unmute your microphone and ask. Same thing with Joy. If you guys want to ask your questions, feel free. Before I move on to the next question, I need to mention that Uzma Shakil sent a question, and she specifically asked to mention her name, and I'm doing so. But the questions you're asking, we kind of went over them in the first 10 minutes of the program, so I'm not going to repeat them. But as you requested, I'm mentioning your name, so we are reading your emails. Don't worry about that. Now, we have a number of questions, including Hanrui Zhao and a couple of other people about the pricing. So one of the questions is about the price, how much should it cost, what should be the pricing structure, but we also have questions, so how much does it cost now, and what is the pricing structure now?
Yeah, so the typical model for the software, the service that is introduced to the university is FTE. So this is basically, I would say, this is the cost of the license per student per year, because the student papers are being checked, and so that's why it's considered that the license should be given per student. Right now, the pricing of Turnitin, it really differs from region. So for example, a few years ago, it used to be like from $7 to $9 per student. Right now, it's about from 3.5 and up per student if they don't have any.
Per year, or
per student per year.
Per year. Oh, okay, that's not too bad. Per year. Very cheap.
But it's not cheap. If you speak with the universities, it's definitely not cheap, because of the budgets being cut. They can no longer allow this type of pricing. So
So you say that's the university license. So if we have 20,000 students at my school, that would be $60,000-$80,000 a year, right?
Yeah, that's right. And they're also increasing pricing year after year. So this is for Turnitin, so it's maybe about 3.5, but it really differs from area to area. So for example, if they have some district-wide license, they may provide some discount. One of the competitors is VeriSite. So this is also a new system introduced in the US market. So right now they charge about $1 per student per year, so which is not expensive at all. But the quality of the plagiarism comparison that they make is very, very low. So this is about like 40%. They found about 40-50% less than unplug finds. And unplug is actually in the middle. So for example, the pricing that we have right now, it's from $1.45 per student per year up to $1.95. And this really depends on the number of students. So for example, if there is a huge university and we do know that they have a problem with financing, we might sell at $1.45 per student per year. And if this is, for example, a college with maybe about 1,000 of students, and that's it, then we can sell, for example, at $1.95 per student. So this really depends, and we are very flexible in terms of the pricing. And also, one of the differences that we have is that we can fix the price for the next 3 to 5 years, depending on the length of the agreement. And this will ensure that no matter what additional functionality we might add into the system, and no matter what happens, the institution is not going to have any unpleasant surprising in terms of the pricing being increased, and they are being like, and they might have problems with the agreement that they have signed for the next several years. So this is in regards to the pricing. And in Europe, there is a very strong competitor named Urkund, especially in the Northern Europe, and they are selling on an average about €1 per student per year. So this is like an average pricing overall. So Turnitin is above, and they used to be much more above. So maybe sometimes even 10 times above, especially when they started working on the market. But the situation with the budgeting, I think it was very, very different, especially in the US till 2008 probably. And we are having a conversation with some universities in the Europe as well. And for example, last year, we have been in Greece, and they have their budgeting cut by 2 times, something like this. So the problem is getting big here. So it's not possible to sell the software at a price and the Turnitin is selling right now. And secondly, I think that this is just not fair, because the system that makes really one function, the plagiarism check, it shouldn't cost that much. This is just not fair overall.
So what you're saying is we have a number of schools, for example, from India, where they literally have like 80,000 students. And so given the budgetary constraints and given the size of the school, it is possible to negotiate a lower price if it's a large school from a developing country. There is an interesting question that just came in. How do you determine your price? I mean, why is it $1.50, for example? Why is it not 50 cents or $5?
We have some operational costs associated with the system. So for example, this, like I have mentioned, may be very typical for the software, the service it is. So this is the hosting, this is the infrastructure and stuff like this. And secondly, we're working with the search engines with their API. So basically, every time you submit a document to Unplug, we make a real-time comparison versus all the information that we can find on the web. And this is not free, because we do have to pay to the search engine to send them requests to make this sort of a comparison. This also has to be included into operational costs. And because Unplug is a very, very young company on the market, we are working right now with a very, very small margin. So our initial goal is to get their portfolio, and then probably we may go a little bit into the price increase. But right now it's just mostly operational costs and a very, very small margin that determines the price of the system.
Fair enough. Michael, I see you are in and out all the time, so if you want to ask a question, feel free to chime in anytime. Several questions about your marketing and branding. So we already talked about the name, and you are obviously very open to suggestions here. What else would you be interested in terms of marketing? What kind of input would it be a slogan that can help you? Would it be some sort of a promotional video? Would it be the script of the text that people can present to the principals, for example, of the schools? Or what else would you be interested in terms of marketing and branding suggestions?
I would say this can be some sort of a message that will help. It's complicated to say it like this, but this is some sort of a message that will help us to position the product in a right way. So for example, if you speak about Uber, right? So what they have made compared to the standard taxi is they have made your journey easy. So here the main word is easy. And the same goes probably for every new product that disrupts the market. We still haven't found such word for unplug that we could possibly use and describe how we are different. So one of the words, this can be automation, this can be easy, this can be quick, but I'm not sure if I like how it sounds. So this very specific word, it really might help, because for example, when you speak about the taxi, right, you do understand the problems that the passengers have. So for example, that's the attitude, that's the dirty car, that's that you should have cash, and all the other problems. And every person who actually ever took a taxi, he's available of the problem. So it wasn't so complicated to find the problem in the niche. But when we are having a hard time getting in touch with decision makers, we don't really have a great understanding what matters to them. So it's very complicated to find a word that will appeal to them.
Nancy, did you want to ask a question, or? All right. Yeah, that's a very good point. You're right. I mean, with taxi, with Uber, yeah, everybody knew about the problems, and it was very easy for them to point out the problem and give a solution. With your product, maybe at the individual level, I can imagine that many students don't even know that there are programs that they can use to check for plagiarism, but at the same time, they probably know even less about what the possible problems could be of those existing products.
Yeah.
Entry mode and HR. Are you open to the idea of hiring local sales representatives?
Yeah, we're open to this, but this is also associated with of course, this is also associated with additional costs for the company. And also, when you have to hire a person in the US, you have to take care about insurance, you have to take care about the other details. And one person, I don't think that one person might be enough. So maybe a few people, definitely up to 5. But this is also going to add considerably to the company expenses. So the original idea was to get some customers, to get some additional money inside the company, except for the funding that we are receiving from the owners and from the investors, and then probably hire some people directly in the States or in the other countries and open the offices in the other countries as well. So we plan doing this, but unfortunately it's just not possible to make it happen at the moment.
Well, if I may suggest or maybe clarify, I guess, if you hire someone on the commission-based basis, which is basically like a freelancer contract, then you will not have to provide any benefit or any insurance. So I imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, but let's say, for example, there is a student, let's say, for example, Cliff here, and let's say Cliff wants to talk to his, I don't know, dean of his business school and promote Unplag, and let's say he's successful, and the dean says, sure, I would like to get a contract. So would you be open to the idea of simply encouraging, I guess, random individuals like participants in Xculture to go out and try to get the contract? And if so, would you be then willing or open to the idea of offering them some sort of a like aftermarket commission or some sort of other reward without hiring them as full-time employees, but basically offering them some sort of like a finder's fee?
Yeah, absolutely. Before that, I was speaking about hiring a salespeople to become the part of the company. But otherwise, absolutely, we'd be happy to make it. And we are all the time we are looking for the new partners, for the people who can actually introduce us to the universities. And of course, we are very willing to pay them their commission, because otherwise it's very, very complicated for us to get into the sphere. So all the ways possible, if the student can in some way influence the decision making, of course, absolutely.
In fact, I'm looking at the challenge here, and we do have what we call the ultimate real-life test of your proposal. Pretty much every company offers that option, and so with Unplag, what they're saying here is that you will provide, suggest a market, and you will provide some sort of suggestions as to the best pricing strategy and the marketing strategy and how to reach the decision makers. But then they're telling you, the students, why don't you prove that it works by literally going out and trying to talk to those decision makers and trying to convince them to basically buy Unplag. And in fact, if I read the instructions correctly, they're even offering 15% aftermarket commission. So that's after the contract is executed, they receive the money, you can actually get your cut. And so if you were able to recruit either a school, which can have, I don't know, anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000 students, or a whole university, which is, at least in the United States, the normal size would be what, like 10 to 30,000 students, you can actually get a hefty, commission here. So if you would like to try it, I mean, don't look at yourself as, as a salesperson. Look at that, just, someone who wants to get some experience. And the reason I would specifically recommend to try to do that is not because you can get some sort of a reward in the end and you can get some sort of a line on your resume that can get you a job, but because by trying to talk to those people, you will probably understand much better what they're going through. You can have all kinds of brilliant ideas as to how Unplugged should sell its product, but until you actually try to do it yourself, you will really not know if it's working or not. And once you start talking to people who potentially can become customers, you will realize that, oh, actually that wouldn't work. Maybe this should be a much better method. So if you have enough courage to give it a try and maybe try it once or twice, you will probably learn a lot. You potentially can get a lot of money. You will potentially can get a line on the resume that says that you facilitated an international contract, which is a big deal. If I were hiring and I saw someone with a resume like that, that would be my choice. And on top of that, as I said, you will gain some valuable experience that may help you in the future when you sell your own product. So I would recommend trying that.
Yeah, and on the other point, I mean, if you can get a connection in the university that is responsible for the software purchase, you can actually get any other company producing software for the education into the university. And connection right now, that's probably everything.
Yeah.
So,
We actually have every semester, we have a few students who do basically bring contracts to the client companies. We had in the past teams or individual students, like there was one whose uncle had a shoe store, like they sold shoes, footwear. And we had a company that was making shoes and they were our clients. And so he literally went to his uncle and said, well, here is this Italian company, they make shoes, would you like to try to sell them? And they did buy a container of the shoes and started selling them, and apparently it went very well. And then there was another company from Florida, they were selling cow pregnancy tests. And so usually nobody, I mean, like, I didn't even know that there are cow pregnancy tests, but apparently it's a big deal.
I also never did.
Right, and so there was a team in Australia or a student in Australia. So apparently this Floridian company is kind of big in the United States, but not really known outside the United States. But then there was a student in Australia who, I don't know if he knew someone like a rancher or a farmer, or just literally just drove his truck to that place and said, well, here's a product, would you like to try it? And so the guy has like thousands of cows. And so he said, yeah, let's give it a try, and he liked it. And so in both cases, students did get something much more out of this than just the grade for the course. So if you would like to give it a try, please do. We are almost out of time, but there is one more question, product design. So the question basically here says that if you have any suggestions for new functions or new features for the product, the company Unplug is interested in your suggestions. And so the question is, what specifically would you be looking for, or how open are you to adding new features or new technical functions?
We are very open, and I said it here myself.
Maybe somebody's microphone, let me try to mute, because I think it could be feedback, and I'll mute my microphone.
Yeah, okay, fine. So we do implement most of the suggestions or additional features requested by the system users. So for example, initially we didn't have a resubmit feature inside the learning management system that would allow the student with the high percentage of similarity to resubmit the papers. So one of the instructors pointed this out, and we have added this functionality. And for example, the other instructor, he mentioned that...
I can mention or comment on that one. Actually, I didn't think about it, but it's a big, big deal. The huge problem for us, for X-Culture, is that we require that the teams first submit the draft, and then a week later they submit the final report. And turn it in almost always takes those as two different submissions. And because the final report is usually almost identical to the final draft, so there would be like, I don't know, maybe 10% difference. It always says it's 90% plagiarized. And for us, it's a huge deal, because then we literally manually have to go through 1,000 submissions and literally manually kind of, correct those problems. And it takes a lot of time. Students get frustrated. So if there was an option to, click resubmit so that the system recognizes that it's the second submission from the same team, that would save us a lot of time.
And this is also one of the commands that we have received. And what we have done in the assignment settings, we added a simple checkbox that says, do not save this assignment to the database. So basically, it's not saved to Unplug database, and you use it as a draft. And then we do not make comparison against it. So this was the other functionality that we requested. And for example, the other one was from the instructors who said that sometimes a student might get ill, but he sent me a paper via email. He didn't have a chance to upload it in the learning management system. So please make it happen that the instructors could submit instead of the students. And so the system still analyzes it. And this is the feature that we're introducing right now. So everything that is related to the convenience, working inside the system, working inside in the learning management system that is related to assignment process or that is related to plagiarism, you're very welcome to suggest that.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's it. It's just, I think your microphone was
muted. Thank you so much. So Nancy, Cliff, any more questions? Because we have a couple more personal questions that I will ask in a minute to wrap it up. But if you have any more specific questions about the business, the challenge, now is the time, because we're almost done.
I was going to just ask about tech support. I was just online to your website and instantly someone asked to chat with me. So do you guys have a good tech support?
Yeah, we have round-the-clock support from Monday to Friday. And because we cover various time zones, and on weekend, the online chat forum is being replaced with the forum to get in touch with the manager, and we check it a few times during the weekend. But yeah, we do have a great support, so the response time is usually within 1 minute. The support email response time is within an hour latest, and in case any urgent technical problems arise, the system would actually send an SMS to the tech developers so that they get to their computers and fix it even before we are being contacted by customers.
Turnitin never offered me any tech support. I mean, they kind of work, but I mean, I don't even know if they have tech support. Anyway, I see a few more people. Vladimir, would you like to ask a question? That's one of our professors. Go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me? I was watching through YouTube, and then sorry, it took me so long to join the Hangout. I lost track of the conversation, but I think it's I was gonna ask you about the situation they were mentioning about the same job being submitted again and again as drafts. I work with a continuous project when they send like the introduction and then send me like the methodology and then some different aspects. Is it feasible to just put it all together as a single project so that the project cannot be checked over and over again? And sorry if you have just answered that because it took me so long to get in Hangouts.
Inside the assignment flow, where inside the learning management system, we have made it happen in a little bit different way. So when you create a submission, there is a small checkbox that tells you do not save this document into the database. And this means that it's not going to be saved. So the next time you're submitting the document that contains the initial piece of information and the new one, it's not going to be checked against the initial submission because you marked it not to be saved to the database. So basically, this way you can work with your document until the final submission and only check for the final submission to run the plagiarism check versus all the documents. That's it.
Okay. Yeah,
all of a sudden, all kinds of people started chiming in. Luis, did you want to ask a question, or you are just here to watch?
I'm just here to learn.
All right. Okay. Wonderful. So we tried to stay within 1 hour, but I still have a few questions that I received by email, and they're kind of more personal, so I saved them for the end. I will say that since they're personal, feel free not to answer them if any of them are uncomfortable or too personal. But anyway, one question, in fact, several people asked it, as a CEO, how difficult is it to be a CEO, and do you have any time left for your personal life?
This is difficult, but I think that it's mostly difficult for a young company when you do face a lot of challenges. So, and I wouldn't say that I'm a typical CEO, so I'm not taking only the top directions. I'm also working with the marketing team, with the sales team, with the development team, and I'm also working as the product owner at this period of time. So there is a huge deal of activities that you have to make happen to make the company work. And in terms of personal time, I would say that I do not take the job that I'm making as the job. So this is very exciting for me, and this is just the part of my life. So I take it just like a huge challenge for me, and I like making it. So there is no like division that is something very personal, and then there I have a job. This is just the way I live it.
Another question, how difficult is it to do business in Ukraine? And I suppose they hint, to corruption or unstable situation, but do you face any challenges?
Yeah, it's it's enough complicated to make business in Ukraine. And though yes, we do work with the universities in Ukraine, and I think that we have maybe about 80% of the universities in our client database right now. But in the Ukraine, the universities, they don't have budgeting for the IT at all. So it's not possible for them to ask for the Ministry of Education to give them some money to get even a computer, not speaking about the plagiarism checkers. So with Ukrainian universities right now, we are working on a free basis. And also there is still a problem that, for example, when you come to some institution, you say, hey guys, we have a product, and they say, we have already purchased another product, because those guys for that product, they have already paid us back some money for us purchasing their product. So there's still a huge deal of corruption going on, and also the problem with probably with the online learning itself. So in Ukraine, the online learning, it hasn't been introduced to most of the institutions yet, and it hasn't been introduced on a way where they would be ready or prepared to use a lot of online systems. So for the education, yeah, it's still complicated, but I have to say that we do work with the Ministry of Education in Ukraine, and they are making a lot of steps to exclude to fight with the plagiarism. And also one of the other points is that here education is very, very closely connected with politics. So for example, because when you go into the politics, you have to write, for example, a dissertation. And most of the people go into the politics, they go there from business, and they would usually purchase this dissertation from someone. And there is also a lot of copied content from Russian dissertations or from the dissertations from the other languages, and it's just not possible to locate it. Yeah, so we do face a lot of problems here in academia, but we work with it, and we work with the ministry, and we work with the institutions. We organize the conferences, so we're doing everything possible here to move things to a different level.
Yeah. There is a question from Nyla, and I suspect that's one of our professors. At least we have a professor by that name, but there is no photograph, so I'm not sure. So the question is, why is Unplugged not using PayPal as a mode of payment? PayPal is considered to be secure and is very easy to use.
We do. Yeah, we use it. It's so for example, for the individual students, PayPal right now is the only option to make the payment. And when we're working with the institutions, it's just not typical for the institution to pay online, to pay by PayPal. They are either paying by check, for example, in the US, or they are making the wire transfer to the bank account, for example, in Europe. Yeah, but we do have a PayPal.
Yeah, Nyla is saying here in the comment on the side that it doesn't seem to be on the website. I will add about PayPal. The problem that Sculpture has with PayPal is, so we have several people working for us here in the United States, but we have one person in Ukraine who does some work for us. And we have to use Western Union because apparently PayPal allows to make payments from Ukraine, but not into Ukraine. It can be different now, but when we started working with him, that was a problem. And so we basically just reverted to Western Union, and that's what we use now. But we literally even thought about for him setting up an account somewhere outside of Ukraine so we can use PayPal payments into his account.
Yeah, this is correct, but our PayPal account, it's attached to our European company.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, it's possible for us to take payments, thanks God.
Yeah. So there are a few questions here from Michael, and I think that's the same Michael who was here in the webinar room. So he's asking about strengths, weaknesses, and we kind of talked about those. Let me see. I'm just making sure that I didn't miss any questions. So again, Anna Karen is asking, so how soon will it be before we can have a 2-minute video that we can show to our deans? Again, we kind of talked about that, but are there any plans to make such a video? Like something that they can share? Would it be maybe some sort of like animation or something? I don't know. I'm not sure if it's a good idea, even because, as you said, it takes more time to explain how exactly it works. but it seems like based on the discussion, a number of people said it seems like they're implying that if I had that video, I would take it to my dean right away, and without it, I don't know what to bring it.
Unfortunately, not a video, but definitely a presentation, and I can send it today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Those of you who are in the webinar room, any more questions? Because I have only one more question left, and that one is very personal and probably will not be answered. But do you guys want to ask something related to the business before we go?
Yes. Hello? Can I ask another question? I'm sorry for Mark taking up a lot of time. You mentioned about the video. Earlier you were saying you have some way of giving a presentation or to maybe have a time where there is a webinar or some other thing that, let's say, if we were to make a contact, we could say, why don't I meet you on such and such day at your office, and together we can look at the webinar.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That seems like a very viable idea. All right,
okay.
3 people, and I'm not going to ask, mention the names, but 3 people independently asked whether or not you are married.
No.
So I'm not sure if you want to answer that question, but I guess that's going to be the last one.
No, I'm not.
Okay, all right. And there is one more question that just came from Louise. I was wondering if the platform has been compared to Safe Assign in Blackboard. Is that similar?
Yeah, we did make a comparison, and Safe Assign, I would say that because Safe Assign is initially a default part of the Blackboard, they do not have a lot of functionality. And so the quality of plagiarism detection that they have, it's not so high. But on the other side, because this comes as the part of the product, and the Blackboard, it's not so cheap. I mean, the Blackboard itself, it's very, very expensive. It hasn't been possible for us to convert any institution using Blackboard to unplug users, because since they say we do have a Safe Assign, we do have a plagiarism detection tool, and this is fine just because we have it. So we don't really treat them as the comparison, because while they are paying a huge sum of money to Blackboard, they're not really interested to pay any additional money to a system that is doing a very similar job.
All right, so let's wrap up here. We're already over time. Thank you so much, Liv, Michael, Vladimir, Nancy, whoever else is here, Nyla. Thank you for joining us live. The recording will be available on YouTube in a few minutes, and those of you who missed can always watch it in the recording. Thank you so much, Anastasia, and I'm going to stop the broadcast right here.